Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the U.S. Kids Golf Mission Podcast. I'm John Kim, the Senior Director of Communications here at U.S. Kids Golf and host of the show. Now, before we start, just a reminder that the purpose of this podcast is to help you make the most out of your family's time together enjoying this great game. Today's guest is Erik Matuszewski, a longtime journalist in the golf world and is now the editorial director at the National Golf Foundation. The NGF, as it's more commonly known, is the hub of data for all things golf. Now, Erik's a great guy, but why do you care that he's on our podcast? Why should you listen, or even more, how will it impact your journey? Well, for one, we know through their data that golf is more popular than ever before, but it's also changing. You don't have to join a private club to be a golfer now. There are more juniors playing than ever before. Why? How did that happen? In that same vein, you're taking on a really important and rewarding journey with your young player. How do you navigate through that without understanding the playing field? This is an investment into your family, for sure, but golf is the engine in this case. Let's make sure it's sustainable and a good long-term play. So we want to provide you with a real-world picture of the game and the industry that can help you make good decisions for your player and family. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Stay with us as we're about to be joined by Erik Matuszewski from the National Golf Foundation in just a moment. Okay, so we are lucky enough to be joined by my friend Erik Matuszewski. Erik, did I say that right?
You did. You got it right.
That's a big win for me. Erik, tell us a little bit about your background in journalism, sports, golf.
Yeah, I've been in the golf industry now for decades, and I like to think my trajectory kind of follows that of Tiger Woods. I started out with Bloomberg News. I was there for about 20 years covering sports business, doing just about every major event. So that was pretty cool, with a very, very heavy golf focus, especially towards the end. And about a decade ago, I started writing for Forbes. And at about the same time, I joined the National Golf Foundation, getting to head up our content and communications efforts. It's been fun. It's a chance to tell stories of real industry trends and momentum, and I get to use some data to do it.
Clarify that for everybody here, Erik. What is the National Golf Foundation? What do you guys do? Why should folks at home be interested or care about the National Golf Foundation?
Yeah, we like to say we're the official data resource of the golf industry. What we do is we keep our finger on the pulse of the game. And I think you can agree, like during this recent stretch, that's more important and critical than ever. Everybody wants to know what's happening, what's changing, what's growing, what's to come. And we keep track of all of that. We're a member organization and members all across the vast scope of the golf business. That's what funds our research. So, I like to say it's everybody from TaylorMade and Titleist, the clubs that you're hitting, to Toro, Topgolf, Troon, TrackMan. It's a huge industry. And sometimes people think of golf and they're thinking of the professional game, right? But that's just the tip of the pyramid. The golf industry is really driven by recreational golf and recreational players. It's a $100 billion business annually in the U.S., one of the biggest participation sports, definitely the biggest pay-to-play sport, and that's what we try and track.
That sounds important to me. You guys do a couple of reports every year. I shouldn't say a couple. You do a lot of reports every year. But I know that you do kind of a state of the industry report annually. I read your 3-minute synopsis that you guys did, and I want to get the quote right. It's here in front of me. It says, it starts with this, and this is kind of the basis of today's show. More people are playing more golf in more ways than any time in history. The metrics of our game are getting their own mic drop moment. Go further into that. Really, more people playing golf now than ever before?
Yeah, when you look at the entire depth of the participation base, we're engaging with golf in ways that we've never done before. And we're almost at an all-time high for on-course golfers as well. So when we look at the overall participation base, we're looking at traditional green grass golfers, those people who go out to a golf course and play every year. But we've also expanded that scope, and we've really had to, because it better encompasses the golf consumer. It's tracking who is playing away from the golf course in new ways, in new forms, because that's very indicative of what may happen in the future. We're seeing it more and more, the crossover between the two. And so, it's imperative to track both traditional green grass golfers and the off-course participants as well. And when we look at that all together, it's almost at 50 million players. We're at 48, just over 48 million now. Over 29 million of those are green grass golfers like you and I.
Those numbers are impressive and a little mind-boggling. We'll get back to that in a moment, but I want to kind of revisit this one thought that always seems to hang over everybody here in the industry. We always refer to this post-COVID boom in golf, right? Like COVID shut a lot of other sports down and people wanted to still find ways to get outside. And all of a sudden people were discovering golf and they were flocking to golf, and tee times were hard to get and memberships were hard to get. We're really not in the post-COVID boom anymore. This is now kind of a sustained permanent tier. Is that right?
Yeah, we like to call this our new normal. And, we were seeing gains that started even before the COVID era. Really what the pandemic did was it catalyzed the growth that was going on already. And so, right now we're getting close. We're approaching that record, the all-time participation high. When I say that, I'm talking about green grass. And I think we can all probably surmise when that was. It was when Tiger was at his peak, in the early 2000s. The economy was doing well, and he was very successful, bringing a lot of people into the game. And what's interesting is, at that time, there were 2,000 more golf courses in the United States than there are today. So we're starting to approach that number with significantly fewer places for people to play on course. And it's a fascinating time for the game, from what we're seeing.
Okay, we're gonna get to that because that is actually one of the points that I really want to kind of spend some time on here during this show. But let me bring up this one question here, because this always, I think, confuses a lot of people, or certainly confuses me. Maybe that's not a big surprise. When we start talking about the number of golfers, and I know that you've delineated very clearly off course versus on course or green grass, but is it an apples to apples comparison? Because right now I know that we define golfers probably in a different way than we did in those early 2000s. In the early 2000s, if you wanted to play golf, your option was go to the golf course. Now with the simulators out there and the venues like Topgolf, is it a fair comparison?
You're right. I mean, it's really not apples to apples anymore. It's apples and oranges. I mean, think about it. I mentioned the 2,000 fewer courses, but in addition to that, it was pre-golf entertainment 20 years ago. This is just over 20 years ago. That was pre-golf entertainment. That was pre-indoor simulators, really, and screen golf, at least from an accessibility standpoint. But it was also pre-social media. And, that's kind of hard to wrap your mind around too, because, at that time, we started, things were changing, whether it was Facebook or some other things, it started to eat into the way that Americans spent their discretionary time. And yeah, of course, the economic collapse was a big issue after that, and that affected our participation levels. But, what we're seeing now compared to what we saw then is there are so many more access points to the game. And why is that important? Well, it's so many more places where people can develop comfort and confidence before even setting foot on a traditional golf course. Now, that wasn't the case in the past. And, one of the things that we do is consumer research. And what that's told us consistently for decades now is it's very intimidating getting out into the golf course. And two of the biggest sticking points are confidence and comfort. Now, all of a sudden, you've got these new on-ramps to the game that are helping people get introduced in different ways. It's been incredibly impactful because you and I both know that feeling of shot euphoria, right? And that's one of the terms that we like to use. You hit that ball the first time, you feel it, you're like, there it is.
Right? I don't know it as well as I'd like to, I'll be honest with you, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yes.
Right. That's the magic sauce that hooks all of us golfers. You start to feel that. That's how people get hooked. And now all of a sudden you've got new avenues for people to get out and play, new on-ramps to the game. And that's just helping with the introductions. And that's helping strengthen the overall participant base. And it's significantly different just 20 plus years later.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about some explanations for the numbers. I know that you guys mentioned that people are recognizing some of the benefits of being involved in golf more. And I love what you said earlier, certainly coming from a kids and family, and we're going to get to that, spend more time on that particular part of the industry, of course, here in just a moment. But from a kids and family perspective, you brought up how there's more distractions available now. You know, kids are in screens all the time. I hear from parents so much. One of the things that they love about golf is that their kids aren't behind a screen. They're not glued to their phones. They're outdoors. They're out with their family doing things. And then there's some health benefits, right? There's not just physical, but mental health benefits and this idea of development and maturing and overcoming challenges and setting goals. How big a part is that for the growth of golf as we're measuring it?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And, you know, the data that we're seeing, the survey results that we're getting back support that. The qualities of golf right now, they're very much aligned with what people want, with what people need. I mean, think about, like you said, think about the digital world that we live in, right? Golf is one of the ultimate analog activities. You can go to a restaurant today and see a family in the corner at a table and, you know, they might all be on their phone, but on the golf course, it's going to be different. Of course, technology is increasingly becoming a component of the game, but at its core, it's a very analog activity. And, you know, we like to say from a well-being standpoint, it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's social. And what's been incredible in these recent past 6 years or so, people have discovered and rediscovered all the benefits that the game has to offer. And we all know that it's a game of a lifetime. We've been saying that forever. People can go out there, you can play with your grandkids, you can play with your grandparents. It's fathers, daughters, mothers, sons. It's an incredible game that spans every single from age 3 to 103, which is really remarkable. I don't know other sports that can say that. And I'll tell you, I bring up those numbers because it's documented that those ages have both players at those ages have made holes in one, 3 and 103, which for somebody who's never made one, it's kind of tough to take, but good for them.
I'm trying to process the 3, to be honest with you, but keep going. But if I seem lost, I'm still picturing that in my head.
Well, you know, and it's great to see because especially when you look at youth participation as one of the most encouraging indicators for golf's future, right? And, you know, that's one of the stats that we've been tracking when we look at participation overall. And last year there was 4 million juniors, and we look at juniors between the ages of 6 and 17. We don't go down to that 3, but we look at people who are a little bit more engaged. So, and that's on-course golfers, 4 million on-course golfers in the U.S. last year. That's the second highest total ever, just behind the peak of 4.1 million in 2004. So it was just over 20 years ago. It's just been an incredible growth rate in recent years since 2019. Which, okay, that's kind of the pre-COVID comp. You know, that's what we will look back and we'll try and compare participation numbers today to then. And when we look at juniors, that's been the biggest jump in terms of age groups. It's 58%. That's about 1.5 million junior golfers that are playing the game now that were not playing then.
And let's attribute that to a couple of things here. I mean, Do you think a lot of that is because of kind of what we've already talked about? They're so adept at screens and computers, and now we're giving them options to kind of almost hybrid combine the two, at least as an on-ramp into golf. Is that a fair reason to suggest we've got more participation because of that?
Yeah, I think that's certainly one of the components of it. There's the technological aspect of it. You have, golf simulators and golf games. We don't track golf games per se in terms of traditional participation metrics, but you have tech-enabled ranges where guys, people can go out and have fun on the range and hitting golf balls without going out in the golf course. But you've got so many more welcoming environments for beginners. And that's a big part of it. More accessible entry points to the sport. There's certainly more expanded youth programming, more development initiatives out there. But another big part of it is the increased visibility of golf. And, what's funny is when we looked at it a couple decades ago at the advent of social media, in some ways it was seen as detracting from the game, right? It was kind of taking away from our time. Now, this visibility in media, in culture, in social media, we see the YouTube golf and the onset and the advent of that and how popular it's become. One of the things we track is perceptions of the game. And that unquestionably is continuing to be on the rise in recent years. There's this golf is cool movement that we're seeing, especially among the younger kids. And that's incredible for the game. And, that's been driven in large part by social media. So from a technological aspect, that's been great for the game. It's been great for the game's growth. It's been great for engagement when it comes to people of all ages, and especially juniors.
There's a couple of thoughts that I have in hearing all of that, which, by the way, well put. I mean, seriously, just that is the life that and the environment that we find ourselves in here, right? That there are more kids and families taking part. But it also brings about some challenges. I will tell you, as we've witnessed this growth in all demographics and in all tiers of golf, it has made certain aspects of the U.S. Kids Golf mission more challenging. You mentioned earlier, we've got as many players, if not more than we've ever had, and we have 2,000 fewer golf courses. That to me sounds like a supply-demand problem. And I don't know an easy fix, but I can tell you that our local tour directors who are hustling their tails off to try to get great venues for our tournaments, they're doing it. They're doing a fantastic job, but it's not as easy as it used to be. I understand that golf courses have P&L statements, and sometimes it's just not, in their eyes, the best move, at least short term, to open up their course for kids and family event when they feel like they could be a higher margin or something catering to an adult crowd. We can go into the long term, the cart rentals and the F&B and the range balls and stuff like that. But you see, my point here is there are challenges that come with growth in golf. How are you guys reading that?
Yeah, unquestionably challenges that exist out there. And, I think there's important context in terms of the golf supply, because we talked about the demand. And, when I talk about, 2,000 fewer golf courses, one of the good ways to look at this nationwide is there's over 16,000 golf courses still in the US. And for context, okay, that's a big number, but what does it mean? That's more golf courses than McDonald's locations nationwide. And I think that kind of is.
Wait. Sorry. Erik, say that again.
There are more golf courses in the United States than McDonald's locations. And that's obviously ubiquitous, almost in every single town, but so is golf. So there's still plenty of supply out there, but there's no question that the demand that exists right now probably is unprecedented. And so because of that, tee times, access to golf courses, it's getting more challenging, no question. And that's a byproduct of the game's success. But we're also seeing courses and golfers, they're getting smarter in terms of new technology that greatly reduces the lost tee times that are out there, right? There's a lot more efficiency from that standpoint in terms of filling available tee times, new apps, new technology, things like that. Courses are getting smarter about late day leagues and 9-hole tee times or partial tee times, even late in the day. So families can get out, so people can get out after school or after work, whatever that might be. Tech-enabled ranges are helping to alleviate some of that appetite for at the green grass level for people that want to go out and hit balls with friends and family. Obviously, the indoor simulator locations are a very big part of this. Golf entertainment venues, places like Top Golf and 5-Iron Golf and Top Golf Swing Suites, places like this, they're becoming more and more common. And that's one of the things that we track. We keep our finger on the pulse of how many golf courses there are, but also how many off-course facilities and venues, places that people can hit a golf ball with golf clubs. And it's expanding so rapidly. I mean, you probably see it. It seems like there'll be a new simulator location that pops up almost every day. And that's important in terms of access, because it's going to get harder and harder to get on the golf course. And that's just a reality. It's great for the operator right now, because for years, they did not really have that pricing power that you were talking about. And now they're able to really raise rates, but it's not higher than the inflation rate. And that's important for people to know. Golf had lagged behind for years, and now we're in a much healthier position overall from both a participation standpoint and a supply standpoint. When you look at it across the scope of green grass golf courses and some of the off-course offerings that are only proliferating.
I'm going to repackage that statement. I'm still kind of stuck on that McDonald's versus golf courses things, but I'm sure we'll have folks fact check that for us. The message to families. Well, first of all, as you said, that the record number of juniors getting into the game bodes really well for the next entire, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of golf, right? Because these folks, if we do our jobs right at US Kids Golf, our job is to develop them and make them fall in love with golf, right? I say that all the time. I'm much more interested in you loving golf at 18 than at 8. But at 8, we want to prepare you so that you are in the position to love golf at 18, then 28, then 38, and so forth. So that's a really good thing. The expectations of this new generation of players might be a little bit different than what we've traditionally thought of as the golf community, because of the influx and infusion of that technology and the personalization that you mentioned. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, the technology it's only going to be increasing technological footprint in the game going forward. Golf at its root is very traditional, but it continues to evolve at a very rapid rate. And that's been good for the game in recent years. It's going to be good going forward. There's a very strong pipeline in the junior ranks, which is extremely encouraging. Now, from what our research says, there's always going to be players. It's not going to be a continuous through line, right? There's going to be players that pick up the game that maybe step away from the game for certain times. And there's going to be stages, whether it's, maybe the high school years and there's other team sports they're pursuing. Maybe it's the college years when they've got other things that are going on in their world. Maybe it's when they start a job, when they start a family. But the fact that we have all these incredible introductions to the game today make it more likely that they'll return and be strong paying customers in the future. And that's one of the very encouraging things that we're seeing across the industry. I mean, I look at it from a personal standpoint. I introduced I've got 3 daughters. I introduced them all to golf at a young age. They started playing in various levels of interest, and they kind of gravitated to other sports and other activities. But now I see my oldest has come back to the game, and all of a sudden it's after she's graduated from college and starting to move on to the next stage of her career. She's kind of come back to it. It was fun to see that, and to be able to go away on a trip with her last year and have her play some golf alongside dear old dad and be actually interested in it. And because, she was introduced to the game at a young age, and then all of a sudden you have that connection and the improved perceptions of golf. It's only a good thing for the future.
I want to tie this up then, and bring back your early days from the sports business perspective, and tie that in obviously with our discussion today. So for the families out there that are thinking about getting involved in golf, do you see golf, one, the future of golf as an industry as a whole? Is it a bright, good thing? Does the future look promising? Is this something they're going to appreciate or regret in the years ahead, that they put all this time, effort, energy into building relationships around the game? There will be a place for them. And then number two, any words of encouragement that you would have for these families in terms of the state of the game right now and their place in it?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think comparisons are obviously inevitable when we talk about looking at the Tiger Woods era and now the COVID era of today, right? And saying, okay, how are things comparable? How are things different? What was interesting when we had those increased levels of participation just over 2 decades ago, we saw some folks or indications when you look at kind of the average round played and you look at the changes in participation, we saw a decline, not long afterwards, which was an indication that you had some people come to the game, try out the game, but they weren't necessarily committed. They weren't going to be longtime players. And what we're seeing today is an indication of much greater stability and sustainability. People are connecting with the game. They're playing a lot. They're getting a lot of interest and a lot of engagement across a number of different verticals, whether it's on course and off. And that right there is very encouraging for the future of the game. I don't think, at least what the data is telling us, is we're not going to see that regression that we saw after those Tiger peak years. So yeah, from a long-term, from a forward-looking perspective, that's very encouraging for the future of golf. From a family standpoint, you're seeing golf has always been a family activity, and it's increasingly becoming a family activity. There's a lot more family-friendly programming at the green grass level and the off-course level, which is only going to help it continue to become this intergenerational activity that's going to be great because people can play it for years.
So families, parents, players, you heard it from the National Golf Foundation. Get into golf. It's good for the family. Get into golf. It's going to be there for you for a long time, and there are more ways to enjoy it than ever before. Erik, I know you're a busy man. I really, really appreciate you finding time to just come in here and inform us and educate us on what's going on in the industry as a whole. What you guys do shapes so many of the decisions that are made just within the building and within the industry on a day-to-day basis. Can't appreciate you enough. So thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for you and your time and your friendship and all that you do for golf.
I appreciate you, and we appreciate your support. It's a fantastic time for the game. It's exciting to see this kind of momentum, and let's hope it keeps going.
Awesome. Erik Matuszewski. I said that right. Erik Matuszewski. By the way, I've known Erik for a long time. I've never used his last name, so now that I'm trying to do it on the podcast, that's why it sounds a little funny. Erik Matuszewski, you're the best.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.